Hey everybody, welcome to the next video here on the Barrel Bottom Reviews channel. I'm Brian Kish, and I'm going to do a little special experimental kind of video here today where I'm going to watch 10 trailers from 10 movies from the production slash distribution company A24, and then try to both describe what's happening on screen and give you kind of a review of the film. Now, this is going to be a little bit late, obviously. We're halfway through February now, talking about movies from last year, but I finally got around to it, so I figured it'd be worth it to show it to you guys and see what you think. So I put it on random, but it looks like the first one here is a movie called, let's just start it. Okay, so this is Good Time. This was my favorite movie of the whole year. It stars Robert Pattinson, and it's him and his brother, and they're a couple of low-level thieves, basically, and then the plan backfires and his mentally challenged brother actually ends up in prison. So then for the rest of the movie, Robert Pattinson is trying to break out his brother. His brother is actually played by one of the two directors of this film. Their previous film, Heaven Only Knows, I think it was called, is actually on Netflix. It's kind of a similar feel. But this movie was just all about the pacing, and it just never lets up. It's completely exciting, just beautifully shot, a lot of really interesting kind of neon colors being showered on characters' faces, and just really authentic New York feel to the movie. Really feels like, people's real lives in Queens and that sort of thing. Outstanding soundtrack. I've actually got it on vinyl over there by 10 Tricks Point Never, and this song playing now is played over the end credits, and it's featuring Iggy Pop, as a matter of fact. So, yes, this was my favorite movie of the year. It feels like a classic kind of 70s gritty New York drama, I would say. But it just never lets up. It's just so exciting, and just an absolute impressive performance from Robert Pattinson, who, to his credit, he and Kristen Stewart have kind of been doing, weirder roles and things lately. So, oh my God, please see this movie. Out of any movie on this list, you have to see that one before any. Okay, next one. Okay, what's next? It Comes at Night. Okay, I watched this the other night, as a matter of fact. I think this is one of the most divisive films in the A24 catalog altogether. Especially their horror movies really divide audiences, because I think most horror fans go into movies expecting a certain amount of action or jump scares, to be specific, and not as much suspense, and A24 really thrives in suspense. This movie in particular, because it's just so small, it's on such a small scale. It's an apocalyptic story, but it's really just kind of about these two families, and then it almost kind of turns into a Twilight Zone episode, because it, sort of gets into the territory of like, well, is there really a worldwide epidemic going on, or is it all just kind of like a metaphor for something else? And is the family themselves really tearing themselves apart? Just to give you like honest feedback on the movie, I kind of was a little bit let down by it. I feel like it didn't really amount to much, and that's not to say that I'm opposed to movies that take their time or give you an ending that isn't what you're expecting, or won't satisfy most audience members, I suppose. But I don't know, I felt just kind of underwhelmed by the ending of it. It looks and feels like a lot of the other A24 movies. There's lots of serene shots. There's a lot of those very, very, very slow camera pulling in, camera pulling out, long bits of silence. So it certainly is a moody movie, atmospheric, but it's not as action and scary and horror oriented as possibly this trailer makes it out to be. And that's one thing about trailers. Quite often to try to capture the feeling of a film in 2 minutes or a minute and a half is kind of difficult. It might give people a different impression of a different movie, so just know what you're getting into. But I mean, it's an A24 movie. So it's still, even one of their weaker ones in my opinion, is better than most. Okay, what's this? Woodshock. Okay, I watched this the other day. I'll start by saying the positive, which is that it's pretty imaginative in the way it's shot, and I like the fact that it keeps kind of drifting in and out of dream sequences, and there's lots of really cool specific music in it, like Galaxy 500, Suicide, Television, Wire, The Feelies, a lot of good music selections. Definitely a sort of downtrodden movie, and very, very slow moving, very much doesn't have much dialogue. It's just kind of it's hard to recommend. It's a very specific movie because it's about just kind of like mourning the death of someone. And out of all these A24 movies, I feel like this one kind of has some of the least amount of depth to it. It feels very much more style over substance, I would say. And I don't know, it's hard to recommend a movie to someone where you describe it as just kind of Kirsten Dunst wandering around a house, dealing with the passing of her mother. I don't know, it's nicely shot, but not the most memorable movie, not very memorable characters. You're probably not going to remember it, a month later. So, you could skip that one. It's alright. I'm just going to cover this so you can't see what beer I'm drinking. Black Coat's Daughter. This was just added to Amazon Prime as well. This was actually the first movie with Emma Roberts in it where I wasn't sort of thinking the whole time like, well, there's Emma Roberts. It's the first one where she kind of actually carved out a role of her own, and you're not just, watching somebody who's a celebrity because their mom is famous. Anyway, I think I liked this movie, actually. Definitely, even for an A24 movie, really starts slow. I feel like a lot of A24 movies kind of like weed out the plebs within the first 20-30 minutes, and then once you sort of hit a 30 to 40 minute mark, the movie really starts up and then never really lets up. This one in particular, about 45 minutes until the end, it just keeps escalating in terms of sinister atmosphere and starts getting really graphic. It gets really graphic at the end. Pretty awesome scene involving a furnace. You may have just seen it there with the crazy convulsing. That was definitely a very creepy moment from the movie. So yeah, lots of legitimate creepiness to this. Feels a little bit like a 70s horror movie in a good way, in that it kind of takes place at a school, and I kind of like the concept. It's like this girl's parents never pick her up from winter break or whatever it is, and they're just kind of left at this creepy school with these big open echoey hallways. But if you're willing to watch a movie that takes its time but does actually kind of pay off, even if it is a kind of Quentin Tarantino bloodfest at the end, it does kind of do a little switcheroo at the end, which is kind of surprising. And it was an interesting movie, and I can recommend this one to horror fans or people who are just curious about movies in this style. All right, A Ghost Story. This one was interesting in that the edges were actually made in that old photograph style, 8mm, I suppose it is. Wow, another mumbly, sad performance from Casey Affleck. Okay, this is one of the best movies of the year altogether. It actually legitimately made me cry about halfway through. It's a desperately sad movie. Probably still worth watching though if you can take it. I mean, usually people equate sad with good, so if you're willing to watch something that's potentially heartbreaking, again, starts slow but turns into one of the most thought-provoking movies in this list, or just of the year overall, because it starts to get into existentialism and dealing with loss and how time could be in an instant, or it could be an eternity, or sense of self. It's kind of all over the map, while at the same time remaining extremely simple in the way the story itself is presented. And like a lot of A24 movies, the concept of having a whole movie where a character is just wearing this ghost sheet over their head could potentially on paper seem too like pretentious first film school film sort of idea, but the material, when it's elevated and given the right team behind it and the right distribution company and the right marketing, it can really make a splash. So I mean, this movie just really blew me away. I could not get it out of my head for the next few days after I watched it. Just amazing. So sad, but beautiful. Rooney Mara, coming soon. That was also on Amazon Prime. Okay, what's next? Florida Project. This was another one I saw in theaters. Went into it not knowing very much. It ended up being many different things. Sad, definitely. Lots of it funny, kind of sweet in a way. I guess I would say there's not much to say about the movie, actually. It's once again a simple plot line, but we're really just kind of following a day in the life of these characters who live in this very rundown sort of hotel where it's practically an apartment complex, but it's technically not, but the same people are renting it out for nominal fees. And it's just this kind of one young woman who's raising a kid, and then who meets this other mom who makes friends in the same apartment complex. And then we kind of just follow them, and the whole movie's sort of shot and from the perspective of children, and the world's kind of told through their eyes. And it's a very charming movie. I remember seeing it in the theaters and being pissed at this old woman in front of me who wouldn't get the fuck off of her phone. And then I remember the same old woman, when it gets to the ending, which I won't spoil, they go, "Well, that's it!" And that's unfortunately, these A24 movies, man, they really divide people, which is a great thing. I think most people can agree, though, that this was quite a remarkable movie in terms of this year. William Dafoe really kills it. I really enjoyed the experience of seeing Florida Project. I have read a lot of comments of people who live in Florida saying it's extremely true to life. I just like the idea of this whole story taking place in this impoverished area that's just outside of Disney World. And it's just day-to-day life, and they're screwing over customers so they can get money to continue living. It's just a fun story. It's many things in one. Lady Bird. Okay. This was... I honestly feel like I probably would have liked this movie a little bit better had I seen it before all the hype, because that kind of, unfortunately and maybe not so fairly, brought it down for me a bit. Also, I don't think I'm the target audience for this movie, even though it is kind of for everyone, and ultimately I did enjoy the movie. I don't think it meant as much to me as it probably will to a bunch of other people. One thing I respect is that while it does do the kind of coming of age story throughout, it leaves things unresolved on purpose, which I actually kind of like, because it's like that's how life is, especially when you're young and like constantly making big changes in your life, whether it's moving out of hometown to go to college. Things don't get resolved. That's just kind of life. So it's true to life, at least. But once again, I think it was a little bit underwhelmed, and it was kind of funny, but it wasn't that funny, and it was definitely dramatic. But I think, the ending is basically just our main character going like, you know what, you were right, Mom. I really wish that I had to. But like, I thought that was spelling it out a little bit too much. But I mean, I don't know. Good performances all out and all that. It was a little twee. It was a little bit twee. You know what I mean? I think there's definitely a difference between calling it like the best reviewed movie on Rotten Tomatoes forever and ever and all that, as opposed to just, I mean, it's hard to out and out dislike the movie, but I don't know what else to say about it. It's Lady Bird. I mean, everybody liked it. I thought it was good. It was good, you know? Lady Bird, Lady Bird. Lady Bird. Well, I mean, she is kind of the archetype of our generation, maybe. I don't know what we're talking about. The Lovers. Okay. This was the last one I watched. Probably one that I usually would have steered clear from, a romantic comedy in 2017. Ugh. But, you know, obviously with the A24 number on there, it's got to be a little fucked up in some way or something. And actually, out of all these movies, this one really played it straight the most. There was a classical soundtrack throughout most of the movie. Very, very subtle humor. Not a lot of jokes. Kind of the same as Lady Bird, where it's not hitting you over the head with jokes all the time. And sometimes the jokes are more character-oriented rather than one-liners or something like that, or some like clever dialogue. This movie was nice. I guess it's kind of the same thing as like Something's Gotta Give, or you know, It's Complicated. One of those. I'm sure this idea has been done before. It's about a married couple who have their own affairs, and then suddenly they discover, wait a minute, we like each other again. Hoo-hoo! So, I mean, you know, you have to want to go into watching a romantic comedy like this, I suppose. You know, I could say a few more times if you'd like. It's not the most memorable film. There was one big laugh for me, though. If I could just ruin the scene, this father and wife, the son character finds out about the affairs and walks out of the house as he's trying to have a sincere moment where he's playing a song on piano for his wife. So the image of him doing that while the son walks out, that definitely made me laugh. You know, this movie was fine. It reminds me of a lot of films that have come before, like the couple ones that I've mentioned, but, I mean, as far as romantic comedies go, this one's a little bit more intelligent, has a little bit more to say than your average one, you know? And it, just like every other A24 movie, it's interesting what they choose to show and which scenes they choose to show and which they don't. Okay, Killing of a Sacred Deer. For some reason, at first I was opposed to seeing it because I already saw the Lobster, and it's another Yorgos movie, and yeah, see Lobster. And for some reason I avoided watching it, but I did end up watching it late last year, and it was definitely good. It was a wild ride, and it's always an exciting time when you legitimately don't know which way a movie's going to go next. It felt even more creepily sterile than The Lobster, actually. I think this was a cut above The Lobster, honestly, even though I did like The Lobster ultimately. Man, this movie gets really fucked up. So if you're into that sort of thing, check it out. It's got a kind of weird, maybe like David Cronenberg kind of quality to it, and that there's a lot of sort of like stilted dialogue on purpose, and body transformation and weird shit like that. Definitely some like scary and terrifying moments, and also brief moments of black humor where it's just so ridiculously over the top and horrible that all you can do is laugh. What's this? Oh, okay. Is this the last one finally? The Disaster Artist. All right. I already actually did a quickie review on this one, and I think this is the only one on this list that I can actually out and out say, like, okay, I didn't like this movie. I didn't like it. Just to summarize what I said in the other video, I really don't see a point in there being a movie about the making of The Room. I don't know why James Franco and Seth Rogen had to be the people to make this movie, and it doesn't really bring any new insight into the story of how the movie was made, and it kind of just goes this one safe middle of the line direction in that it doesn't get crazy and over the top and surreal, but it's also not, I don't know, super dark and realistic and gritty either. It's just seems to be like kind of like a celebration, and everyone's kind of jerking themselves off in this like inside joke that's like not been an inside joke for a long time. And I don't know, man. It's gonna please a lot of people, and there's a lot of celebrity comedian cameos in there, and that's like fun. But movie is just so like in one ear out the other. Don't ever need to see it ever again, really. James Franco's depiction of Tommy Wiseau isn't particularly strong. His brother, was it Jess Franco? Whatever the hell his name is, he's terrible in this movie. Yikes. I actually saw this in theaters. I've got my Tommy's World pen over there, but oh my god, Alright, can we let hopefully this will roll off the Room appreciation for a little bit. Probably not. Hey, fuck James Franco for cutting off Tommy Wiseau when he was trying to give a fucking speech, okay? Oh my god. Alright, that's it. We did it. Alright guys, well, cheers. That's the A24 10 movies of 2017 trailer. And I thank you for watching if you made it through this whole thing. I hope you got some sort of information out of that and maybe have a couple of movies on your list to watch. And, you can kind of let me know if, you had something to say about these movies, and I'd like to hear it. So thanks so very much. Stay sexy. That's right, I can drink 5% alcohol beers.